What's happening, everyone? My name is Adrian, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, YouTube content is going through a bit of a change from my scheduled content. Originally, I was, planning to keep the Meet the Driver experience videos going on, but because we're all in Tier 4 in the UK, I had to change things up a bit. So, today, myself and I also invited Ronald along.
Hey guys, what's up? What's up?
It also invited Ronald along. Thank you very much for joining me on today's call. So, what that means today, I'm going to be looking at quite a controversial topic with Ronald. And what that topic is basically related to UK's recent announcement in regards to the ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles by 2030. What do you think of that, Ronald?
Kind of sucks. No, like that. No, because it's 10 years from now, isn't it? And we're already going into 2021, which means we've got 9 years left. And when I first heard this particular announcement, I was like, so it means I only get 9 years to enjoy cars, like really enjoy cars. But then I was like, oh no, that's on the sale of new cars, and I'm poor. I don't buy new cars, so I'm alright.
I mean, when was the last time either of us have bought an actual brand? I've never actually bought a brand new car.
I think no, I've never. The only closest one I've had, it was 3 years old. That's the most newish.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that was a Seat Leon.
Oh gosh, Mr. Fancy over there.
Like, you know what I mean? The next newest car is no. All my cars, most of my cars, are on average 15 to 20 years old.
Damn.
So yeah.
But yeah, exactly. But anyways, this being quite controversial for myself and you, because I would say we're petrol heads, right?
I do like to dabble with the petrol,
yes. So what we're going to basically be looking at is the current state of EV electric vehicles in the UK, what options we have, and also what it's like living with an electric vehicle in the UK. So starting off, I'm going to go over, surprisingly, Ronald, a very long list of electric vehicles that's available to us at the moment. I didn't realize there's so many, and I've also excluded some manufacturers because basically, if I'm going to list a VW, it's basically a Audi or Seat anyways, or Skoda. So I've only just included VW, excluded Audi, Seat, and Skoda. Yeah. Makes sense, right? Cool. All right, I'm going to get started, right, Ronald? If you want, take some notes, because it's a very long list. So, starting off, we have Tesla, everyone's favourite electric vehicle brand. And at the moment, that includes the Model S, Model 3, Model X. They also have the Model Y coming up as well. And prices for a Tesla start from anywhere from about 40k all the way up to 130k. And this does not include any extras you want to add on to the car as well. And the range of a Tesla averages from around 267 all the way up to 520, depending on the options you add to your car as well. Next up, we have the very new Porsche Taycan. Prices range from 83,000 to 138,000. Also not included any fancy Porsche extras you may want to add to the vehicle as well. And in terms of models, you have the Taycan 4S, Taycan Turbo S. Doesn't mean you get a turbo battery or anything like that. And range in terms of for the Porsche, you're getting about 240 to 300 miles. And next up, we have Jaguar I-Pace. Prices range from 65 to 74k. Also not including any extras you want to add onto the vehicle as well. Range, they are all approximately about 292 miles. Next up, I think the car's been out for quite some time, which is the BMW i3. Prices range from 40k to 42k, depending on the model, and then price can go up if you add any extras as well. Range from about 173 to 188. I do know, Ronald, that since you are a BMW owner and you're quite familiar with this platform I'm about to mention, they do have a BMW iX3 in the pipeline as well, which is coming out soon as well.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, my partner and I was having a look at that the other day, and what was jokes about this, and it's something that obviously I don't really buy new cars like we said earlier. To just so you can have a conversation with BMW about an iX3, you got to put down a £500 pre-order, and then they'll contact you to discuss options, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But I suppose maybe I don't know, maybe that's just something that is different. But to put down £500 just to get a seat at the table to talk about what car you want to buy kind of just makes you think, I don't want to do that. And
it's not even like any kind of. It was a iX3, right?
It's a good car though.
No, i3, sorry.
It's like basically like an electric X3. That's the way I've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's a decent mid-size SUV, good for the school run. Will it do the mileage? Well, we'll talk about that real world examples because
Yeah, you think like a vehicle of that size, it's probably in the sort of category to compete with like a Tesla Model X, and possibly have enough batteries to increase the range to something closer to the Model X, I hope, maybe. Who knows? But the thing is, the Model X, in comparison to the other models, have quite a low range anyways because of how heavy the car is. So compared to the Model 3, Model S, the range isn't quite as good, to be honest. Yeah. But anyways, almost halfway through the list, Ronald, so let me get through this. I'll try to get through this quickly. So then we have... So we just done the BMW. Next we have the Mercedes EQC. They also have two other models in the pipeline as well, like an EQA, and then I think the other one was a EQV, which is their van platform. But I'm just going to go over the price for the EQC, which starts around 65k. Doesn't include any extras on that price. Range is about 255 miles. Next is the very new Volkswagen ID3, which starts from about 33 to 42k. Range is between 260 to 360 miles. Okay, moving on. We're about halfway through now. Honda E, quite a cute car. Price is about 27k to 29k. Range is about 130. Also, the next one, very new as well, Mini E. Starts from 27 to 33, range is about 140. Peugeot E208 and E2008. Don't know what they're called. E2008. Price range is about 29 to 39k. Range of 217 miles. Then we have the Vauxhall Electric Corsa and Mocha, which is about 26 to 35k. Range is about 209. Then you have the Renault Zoe, 27 to 30k, range of about 240. Last but not least, I have the Nissan Leaf, which is about 27 to 35k, which is about 160 to 240 in range. And that's not all of them, but I have to exclude some brands, but that's pretty much what is available in the UK market at the moment. Quite a lot to swallow. In terms of like, I don't know, in terms of, there's some of them are very new vehicles, and in terms of like the range, I think the price you pay, that pretty much sums up what you get in terms of your range. In terms of range, I kind of feel like the mid 200 to just under 300 is like the just about right. I kind of feel like, I mean, in terms of some Teslas, you get about well over about 500, and I think it's a bit excessive to have something that much anyways, because I think around the mid 200s 300s, that's perfect for someone that's commuting to work and using it daily? I mean, like, how many miles do you do in a week, Ronald?
On a full week, about almost just under 300.
Just under 300. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have to charge the car every day if you use a EV vehicle,
You probably would, just because you'll always have that anxiety around, is my car going to run out driving down the A1 or whatever? But you don't have to. And it's interesting how they're doing that kind of that range, like 250, 300, because that's usually about average motorist mileage per week. So that's what they're aiming for.
I mean, anyone that needs anything in excess of that is probably someone that's using the car for like work purposes where they're always on the go. Then yeah, it makes sense that you may need something with a larger range, I guess. Anyways, in terms of like what's available on the market, what does that look like for you? And how does that
realistically
look?
That's I mean, I'm not, if I'll be honest, I'm not that fussed about the EV vehicles, but my wife is kind of trying to be a low-key eco-warrior, so she has been genuinely been looking at it. But the problem what's pricing us out at the moment is affordability. It's the mileage that we do versus how much we spend on fuel at the moment versus how long will it take for this car to effectively break even, so that the initial I mean, to give you an example, my wife's current car is a twin turbo Insignia, right? Diesel, 2014. We spent under 10 grand for it. That car does 15,000 miles a year. Now, if you equated that to an EV car, that would end up being an investment of over 30 grand, so 3 times the cost of the car, and it would take a good few years before for the savings in the petrol, the electric costs will outweigh paying for diesel, because diesel for us is like 2.5 grand a year that she has to spend filling up that car. And that means that if I bought a car at 30 grand, that's going to take several years before we start seeing any kind of half decent return on it. And I think that's what's at the moment. It's not even the range anxiety, it's just the fact that it's just too bloody expensive.
Yeah, it's too expensive to, like myself and you, we don't like buying a car on finance or leasing the vehicle, and we prefer to just buy the car outright anyways. And to having to buy a brand new electric vehicle, you kind of have to weigh up the option of, actually I might have to actually finance this because I don't have a spare 30k sitting around the house or under the bed. Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like none of the EV vehicles actually look nice. It's not something I'd want to be seen in.
Apart from the Zoe. Zoe's a cute car. I've always liked Zoes.
Yeah,
but then it's not a me car. But I like the Zoe because of its. I mean, it's a nice car, decent price, like on the used market, and it's a nice shape. It's quite practical. Teslas are obviously that's the gold standard in terms of EV cars. However, to get into that market, you need to earn a serious amount of money.
And even the starting range with the Model 3, you're looking at least starting with just about 40k.
Yeah. I looked at one,
and that's not including any
extras.
Oh, sorry, you go.
No, I was gonna say it's. I think I worked out the other day a used Tesla. That was a Model S that was like 39 grand, would have cost us over £650 a month to do the monthlies on this car. That's a lot of money out of our income. That's basically sending my child to nursery for 3-4 days a week. Now, let's preface this by not saying the whole video is basically bashing the EVs, because there is a lot of good parts to the EVs. We just need to help, clear up some of the waters, because we sound like just normal petrol and diesel car owners. We just think, anything that's not, combustion engine is just terrible. But No, I think there is a lot of
goods.
It
is something we need to consider in the future.
There's a lot of goods to this. We just need to now work through it and see, okay, this is this benefit is useful, that benefit's useful.
So one of the things you mentioned before is the cost of charging a vehicle at home. And one of the things I came across whilst doing the research for this video is some of the major energy companies you have. I think it's what was it again? I think it was EDF, and the other one doesn't pop to my head anymore. But a lot of the major energy companies, they do tariffs that also accommodate for homeowners with EV vehicles.
That's good.
So yeah, which is quite cool. So during like the off-peak hours, depending on what tariff you select, I think during off-peak hours, then when you charge your vehicle in these off-peak hours, which is considered like either from 9 p.m. or midnight onwards, then the cost of charging an EV vehicle would almost be half the price per kilowatt, or what they'll usually charge you for charging your vehicle. And I think like some companies, they have like solar panel options as well, where you have your solar panel and then they'll store that energy somewhere where you can use that to also charge your EV vehicles. So there are options to reduce your cost, but it also means for some of the options you may have to invest to get the benefits out from that as well. In terms of daily use, for someone like myself, for you, if we're traveling to work or doing our shopping, most supermarkets now, they have EV charging stations. There's slow chargers. I think there's 7 kilowatt ones would be free for charging, but if you want to use their fast or rapid chargers, then there'll be a charge for that. Basically, I think it works out to be about £6 or £7 for 30 minutes worth of fast charging, basically, which I think averages out to be about, charges your car to about 100-mile range. Some workplaces, I think more the fancier workplaces, they have EV charging facilities, which are normally free anyways. So I think
where we work, we've got EV charge stations, isn't it?
Yeah, in the shopping centre they got EV chargers. But I think the main problem is, if you work in a shopping centre, you can't exactly leave your vehicle there the whole entire time of your shift. They get a bit funny about it because I think they monitor how long you leave your car there, because for other users basically.
Yeah.
But otherwise, for like, most people will be either charging at home or charging at the place of work, or charging at for a short period of time at a supermarket. You'll be getting a free charge at most places you go, though it's going to be a slow charging facility, but it's still free at the end of the day, unless you want to subscribe to like a fast charging facility, then that'll be at different rates. Otherwise, I think like users that would be traveling a lot, doing a lot of mileage every day, then they may have to utilize the charging facilities at all the different charging stations set up around the UK. Currently, there's about 9,000, well, over 9,000 EV stations set up in the UK, and in comparison, there's around 8,000 petrol stations in the UK.
So there's more EV charge stations than petrol stations?
Oh yeah.
I
was quite surprised about that.
That's significantly better than it used to be.
Oh yeah, and I think it's just under 2,000 of those charging stations, they all have fast charging facilities as well.
So the infrastructure's there.
In terms of like, if you're stopping off at a petrol station or charging station during your long journey, then it looks like the network's there to facilitate people that are traveling long distance. But if you think about people that live in apartments or flats, where they're charging their cars, where they're leaving their cars,
it's a classic argument.
If they got an EV vehicle.
And this is the thing. So one thing about this ruling, that not everybody is going to buy a new car, for first and foremost. It's a very specific part.
Oh, no.
And nowhere in the guidelines is it telling us that we have to effectively ditch our petrol cars, and there'll be no petrol stations left around. That's not going to happen. Not in our lifetime. It will be a gradual phase out, as it just makes more sense. And cars, when we can buy a decent EV car, relatively new, for like 20-25 grand, mass market, mass production, there'll be the infrastructure of people being able to repair these things, not having to always go to the manufacturer. Then we'll be at a transition point where most people feel more comfortable. Because one thing you really have to consider is not necessarily you buy the car, but you've also got to think, who's going to fix it? Not everybody wants to pay the extortionate prices that Tesla charge to repair their vehicles. They might want to get a Tesla approved specialist, or even though they would probably frown against this, someone like myself who can service his own cars. It would be nice to do some of that stuff myself, but I know that that's not something that Tesla want you to do. They want everything to go back through them. And that kind of means that, yes, they can control that ecosystem, but it means you won't have it's not going to be a mass market take-up.
Mm-hmm. I can also imagine, like, within the next 5 years, the used car market for EV vehicles would have a lot more options for everyone as well.
Yeah.
Though we probably then you also have to look at what kind of condition those 5-year-old batteries are in as well, and what kind of options there are for users to either change those batteries for new batteries, to be fair, and what the cost of changing battery looks like as well.
So when I did some homework many moons ago, the Renault Zoe, that's what I was looking at, 2014 Renault Zoe, it was about 5 or 6 grand. Do you remember we were talking about it?
Yeah. And I was looking at the other one, the little buggy looking one
Leaf?
as well at the time. No, the Zoe, I think it's Twizy.
Oh yeah, Twingo. No, not Twingo. Yes, I know the one you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, the one that looks like a buggy, basically, no windows. Windows are options, I think it was.
So the cool thing with this particular car was that it was because this one, like, first iteration, it depreciated quite fast, which means that if you wanted to kind of try out, jump into the ecosystem, it's quite cool. You could. 6.5 grand for the car. The only problem is you had to pay for a battery lease. So you bought the car, but you had to enter into a lease agreement where you pay monthly to basically maintain that battery. So if the battery goes wrong or you break down, you run out of juice, someone will come and sort it out. So it's almost like an all-in-one service. It was about an extra 130 quid a month, I believe, back in those days. So in theory, at that particular price point, you live in, like a town now, we've got a bigger infrastructure. You'd be able to do some good stuff. You'd be able to get to work, do shopping, do school run, go on a long journey, because the infrastructure was there. 3 years ago, we didn't have more charging stations and petrol stations. It was significantly less. But it was a car that was 6 grand for an EV car. Whereas now, like, most cars are stupidly, with all due respect, they're stupidly expensive. Like, who can afford 40 grand to buy a half decent ID3? And that I would assume that's targeted at.
That's like their entry level.
That's what I'm saying. That's not the Golf E. Do you know what I mean? And even Golf E's, even the Golf E's quite expensive. A lot of these cars, because they're first and second generation, you are effectively the guinea pig. However, if you have the money, or you have ways of, 'cause obviously there's a lot of government incentives to drive EV cars, or people put it through their business. If you can do that, then there is a way around it. But it's going to take probably a good few years to take off.
I mean, basically, with the current network, though it has a lot of charging stations, more than petrol stations at the moment, the problem we find is that, what I found is that there's too many providers. So I think as a user, if you're planning your journey, the problem you have is that you have to kind of worry about, if I'm reaching this EV station, do I have a membership with that charging station there? Is that a BP Pulse? Is that whatever? There's like about 20 different providers, some of which own more charging stations than others. But I think that's the main problem for people that are traveling long distance. You'd have to worry about, do you have a membership for that particular EV station or not? Though you don't have to have a membership, but it's cheaper to charge when you do have a membership. You can always just go pay as you go, to be fair. But I think that's the main problem. There's too many providers. There's not like a unified kind of charging solution for everyone. It's like, it's not just by going to like, I want to go with Shell, I want to go with BP. It's, you have to decide over about 20 different providers at the moment.
Yeah, if you try to plan a trip from here to Bristol, which will probably take you along the M4, you'd have to think of, you'd have to actually plan your journey. Like, plan along the route, right, I've got this much range, I could probably get there on one full charge, but how fast am I going? How much, am I going to use the AC? Am I going to have to switch off the radio? Then when I get to the petrol station that has the e-fuel as well, I'll be like, okay, so it's basically like the different parking apps that you have. You go into your local town, you pay for parking, but it's different providers. You've got Ringo, you've got Park by Phone, you've got Pay by Park or whatever they call it, right? And annoyingly, I've got 3 of those apps on my phone, depending on where I'm parking, which is quite long. I'm predominantly fuel up my car with Shell, no particular reason, just because I find that it's the main one that's near me. I don't have a BP where I live, and BP's in the next town. So I tend to use Shell more than anybody else. So I'm kind of almost low-key loyal to them. But on top of that, I then have to think, okay, when I get there with my EV car, as I'm saving the environment, oh wait, I don't have a plug because all the plugs are different. So then that in itself is annoying. So I reckon the way to really get that mass adoption is to have a universal standard. A bit like USBs that is on phones. Yeah. No, I don't have to have the same kind of charging speeds. That's dependent on whoever's providing the energy. However, that plug socket should be universal, or at least 2 different types, so that if I haven't got one, I've got the other. I saw a video on YouTube one time where a guy was in Amsterdam trying to fill up his trying to do a trip from, I think, or was it Schmee? Somebody did a trip basically from London to Amsterdam. I think it was Schmee, or London to Germany. And one of the challenges was that when he got to these different charging stations, he either didn't have the right, couldn't put in his card details, he couldn't use the right app because the app wasn't working because it was country specific. Then he didn't have the right adapter, and then when he did have the right adapter, the speed was incredibly slow.
I'm sure we've seen this kind of issue with like an earlier episode of either Top Gear or Grand Tour with James May. I'm imagining James May, because he's probably always going to be the one that's getting put in the electric car anyways, and him coming across all these kind of issues along his journey. But no, that's years ago anyways. I think currently
I know it's got better, but it needs to be as soon as they get that consortium. But then I said, who controls that? Who decides? Like, we've now left the EU. We know that the EU are far more ahead of us in terms of their EV infrastructure. But what kind of standard are they working towards? Because I know that Tesla's got their own standard of charge. Then you've got, I know Peugeot, VW,
Porsche,
BMW, Porsche, I'd assume they've all got their own different chargers that charge at different speeds, and they've got different connections. And it's like, bro, I'm not going to walk around with 3 or 4 different types of adapters depending on where I'm fueling up my car. It's not going to happen. If it's like that, then no, trust me, people aren't, again, it's another reason why people aren't going to adopt it.
I think it's just like too many people trying to be pioneers of this growing industry at the moment, and it's causing too much confusion for everyone basically. So there's time. I think there's still time. It's almost, just over 9 years, and probably more than that anyways, to kind of fine tune and improve this kind of infrastructure and just make it less confusing, where you can just the main thing is the connection type, and also the different providers as well. I mean, if they can make buying an EV car, like me popping into Carphone Warehouse, or sorry, EE, to buy a phone. It's like, okay, I want to buy my EV car with Shell Energy. I want the Apple Car Pro Max with this amount, this unlimited energy tariff for this month, this much a month, and maybe a £5,000 deposit, and I'm paying X amount a month for the car. That would work, I think.
That will, that would be.
That's what I reckoned.
10 years from now, be quiet, Siri. That I would imagine would be the situation 10 years from now. No one buys. I mean, you speak to anyone who works in the car sales industry. No one buys a car new and pays cash for it.
Only me and you buy cars outright for some reason.
Exactly. I don't know. But everyone does monthly, and I think that's a great idea, because if there are more charging stations and petrol stations, then that means that there'll be more charging stations at the petrol stations. And if I'm predominantly filling up at a Shell petrol station and I'm on a Shell Unlimited E-Lite tariff, I've just made that tariff up, right? It sounds pretty cool though. I know that on a journey, any Shell petrol station I visit, I know for a fact they're gonna be able to just fill up my car. I won't have to pay for it because I'm on a tariff. I don't have to. And I also know that they'll have the charging connection, because as part of the whole service I've bought, I know that any Shell petrol station will carry that particular adapter. That must be, forget the range anxiety, that must be such an interesting thing for e-car owners to have, is when I arrive at this petrol station to fill up my e-vehicle, will it even have the right adapter for me? If I'm a Tesla, I know that I'm going to get one, because I will see in that red text,
Tesla has such a large network.
So I already know that. But if I'm just getting into the game of like a Renault Zoe, do I know that the local Shell? I'm trying to think in Stevenage where I live, where can I charge up an e-vehicle? I'm actually trying to think, because none of the petrol stations support it. None of the supermarkets have it.
But Shell are building their own EV charging network as well. They're working on their own charging network.
I'm trying to draw a map around Stevenage to try and figure out where you can charge an e-vehicle. I'm going out for driving a little bit. I might actually have a little hunt around. As far as I'm aware, there are hardly any places. There's none at the supermarkets. There's no petrol stations that support it. Oh no, I know. In our indoor car park in town. That's the only place I'm aware that you can charge it up in the outside.
Anyways, I think today myself and Ronald will wrap up the video right here. We are quite conscious of the time and how long we've been discussing this right now, and also I'm having some technical issues with my camera, so we'll continue another time, because we're like, in regards to EV vehicles, in regards to like the cars themselves, the charging options, it is a very large topic, and I think myself and Ronald will come back to this and explore this a bit more in the future, and maybe we can make some more interesting content in regards to EV vehicles. Maybe we'll know when things calm down in regards to the whole lockdown and COVID situation, and we can kind of explore, what it looks like traveling with an EV vehicle in regards to like long journeys as well. So maybe at some point myself and Ronald will go on a little holiday somewhere, like maybe drive to Wales or something. But anyways, anything you'd like to say to everyone, Ronald?
Yeah, that's all from me as well, guys. Stay safe out there. It's crazy world right now. Happy New Year to all those, and we will see you, me and Pun, hopefully in the new year with some fresh content for y'all.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Alright, so if you're enjoying the content, please make sure you like the video and also subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Alright, wishing you all a very happy new year. Stay safe. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.